Without further ado, I'd love to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Mr. Jake Linneman. He is a technical advisor for AgSpire, specifically in regenerative agriculture systems. I'm going to read your bio, Jake, if that's all right, because I'd like to introduce to the people who you are. Jake's passion lies in working with farmers, which really began on the family farm in northeast South Dakota. His pursuit has led him to work in research and development, seed sales, market development, and more recently, soil health and sustainable agriculture. He enjoys sharing his knowledge with farmers to help them gain a better understanding of what the soil health principles can offer and how to manage expectations. Jake holds a BA in crop and weed sciences from North Dakota State University, as Jamie would say, go Bison, and or roll herd. And an MS in plant and soil sciences from Oklahoma State University, so also a cowboy. He is a SUAV licensed pilot and a board member for the Payne County Conservation District. Additionally, Jake serves as a crop consultant. Most recently, Jake earns recognition as a CCA certified crop advisor, so he must be getting his CEUs here today as well. Good, awesome. So welcome up, Jake. We're excited to hear what you have to say.
Can everybody hear me okay? Excellent. Thank you, Jackson. Thank you, Sentinel for allowing me to come up and talk to you guys today. I'll get into AgSpire, what we do, who we are a little bit. Eric did a great job. I probably did a better job than what I usually do when I give my 30-second elevator pitch to producers. So I really want to introduce myself, let you know who I am, my background a little bit. Jackson did a great job in the bio, just a little bit more. I hail from Clark, South Dakota, just west of Watertown. Mom and dad still own the operation. We grew up milking cows. Mom and dad sold them after me and my three brothers were done on the farm. Dad lost all of his help, and so he got rid of the dairy cows. I'm number two. Brother number three will probably end up taking over the farm, so it gets to stay in the family. I've got no issues with that. I live in Oklahoma, happily married, and I married into a pecan orchard. So I get to trade row crops for an orchard, which if you guys haven't had chocolate-covered pecans or turtles, highly recommend it. I even have a direct source and link to help share with you guys. Went to North Dakota State, got a degree up there, couldn't find a job, went down to Oklahoma, thought I'd move away. Got a master's, met my wife, never left. So what the agenda is today, and I probably should have had this slide up first, quick agenda, okay? I am an agronomist. That's what I got my degrees in. That's what I have done since I left college. So technical advisor, regenerative systems, because the last 10 years I've been focusing on how to get farmers to learn what these practices are and how to adopt them, manage and set expectations so they have a very positive outcome. And that is key to a lot of adoptions. So really quick, a little bit more. I have three kids. This is Maya. This was taken a couple weeks ago. She's 13, just got her braces off. And she is super happy. No more worrying about gums rumming on teeth. She's smiling all the time. And she's a sweetheart. I have Lane. He turned 10 a couple weeks ago. Huge baseball fan, but he can't tell you a single player on his favorite team, and that changes week to week. He just loves to play. He gets striked out. He walks to the dugout, big smile on his face, like, man, that guy can pitch really hard. So he's always happy. He is also the reason why I'm going to start working out, because when he turns 18, I need to make sure my bluff is still very in effect so he doesn't try and take me. This is Remy. She's 7. This is Kit Kat. He's a feral cat that Remy adopted. He's got a shot, so everybody's good. Remy, I don't know how to describe her except she's Remy. So picture a tornado that runs around about this tall, but then will be the sweetest thing. She'll hug your leg and you just melt, right? Usually the third child, sour at first, but then you get through and you get a little sweet spot. So that's Remy. All of this obviously is not possible without my wife, Cammie. We've been married this March, will be 14 years. So if you do the math, Maya's 13. The wedding night was successful. So anyways, my uncle, we got married in March, and my uncle was getting married December 1st of the same year. And he said, you know, if you guys are successful tonight, the due date is our wedding date. I was like, oh shoot, we didn't plan that one well. And Maya came early. She came on Thanksgiving Day, November 22, which was one of the earliest Thanksgivings that we've had. So we did get to go to Uncle Matt's wedding. Into the landscape. So let's begin our talk. Okay. So what this is just nothing more than an image of showing that there are companies interested in sustainability goals. These goals can vary. We'll get into that a little bit. 2015 is when it's kind of when a lot of this hype started. I would say mid-teens. Late teens, it really started taking off, and by 2021, I would say a very large number of companies have started to make carbon claims of any sort. Carbon reductions, carbon neutrality, emissions. Pick a statement, we could probably find a company who made some sort of claim with that. And it varies. We have the livestock sector, we have row crop production sector, and we have CPG sectors. CPGs, and I do apologize. So I have a lot of acronyms. If you don't know what they mean, just raise your hand and I will quickly explain it. CPGs, consumer packaged goods, soda pop, Wrangler clothes, tires, those are all CPGs, and they source products and sell it to consumers. And it varies anywhere within that these companies are wanting to make claims. And in the late teens and the very early 20s, just a few years ago, that was a lot of hype. It was gaining a lot of media attention for companies. It was a good way to promote themselves and a good way to really reinforce the clientele base that they had, the consumers who buy their products. And with the demographic changing of who controls most of that spending, which is now becoming a younger demographic, they are trying to cater to what they're wanting. And we know that they are catering to more sustainability. So this is why we're seeing a lot of increase in companies making claims. So global active participation, not just in the States. Europe is very, very active. South America has some. Pick a country, they probably have it. The picture up here is from Science Based Target Initiative's website, SBTI. I'll get into that in just a second. But I pulled this, I think, a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. So globally, there are over 12,000 companies who have made claims with SBTI. That does not include their own in-house claims. That number could be triple this. But that's a number of companies who have set claims that are now being held accountable. So if they back out, there's repercussions to that. You can't just make a claim, not do anything to it. There's too many eyes and ears on a public claim for carbon sustainability like this that it does create a bad PR image for them. And nobody wants a bad PR image. So some of these goals can include, but not limited to, these are probably the most common that we see at AgSpire. Carbon reductions or removals. A reduction is anything that is, let's say, perfect. Reduction in nitrogen. There are greenhouse gas emissions with the production of nitrogen. So that's not the application, it is the production. So if you're reducing nitrogen, you are reducing the greenhouse gas footprint that nitrogen was produced by. That's a reduction. Tillage. If you are doing a reduced form of tillage, that is a reduction because you're reducing the amount of CO2 that is released. So the other one is a removal. That is where you are actively removing CO2 from the atmosphere, putting it in the soil. And most common example of that is cover crops. Crop diversity can help increase that. If you've done monoculture beans for 5 years, it's not a very high carbon intensity crop. High nitrogen, yes. carbon? No. So if you were to switch that with corn, wheat, milo, any grass type, that's a high carbon crop, and that also will help look at a removal aspect within that scope. And by scope, there's scope 3 emissions. That is what most companies are offering. Scope 1 is where a company looks at how they can reduce it themselves. Electric cars would be a great example. Okay, so that's scope 1. Scope 2, energy sector. It's how they're getting their energy to their operation. If they wanted to do that, instead of using, let's say, coal, they could look at solar, hydro, or wind. Examples. Scope 3 is anything to do with their supply chain, right? So in agriculture production, which is what we'll be talking about, that's either beef, livestock, not just beef, but that includes all livestock aspects, and row crop production. I got some examples I'll share in a little bit. Some newer ones that are a little bit more tricky to define, biodiversity metrics. So think pasture settings. If you take over a pasture and it's been overgrazed really hard, you have undesirable species located in it. What this is you can measure those species that are in there, undesirable, not needed, and it's usually a low number. You overseed that with a diverse mix, native, introduced, or improved varieties of grasses, and now you have an increased biodiversity metric. You went from a low number of not desirable species to a high number of desirable species that not only impact the livestock that you're grazing, and I'm using that as an example, but also wildlife, water infiltration, carbon sequestration through more diverse species and how they interact with each other. Water metrics is relatively a little bit newer. Not newer, but it is gaining a little bit more attention, right? So decreased water usage. I think you gave the example, almost 7 billion gallons of water saved. That right there is very noticeable. Companies will look at that as ways to implement on projects that they want, that they can have that kind of claim as well, or outcome. Walmart with rice production in Arkansas is a great one. They put out a bunch of sensors. They are trying to reduce at least 10% of their water on rice production because water can be a limiting factor in a lot of situations, right? Some people consider it the next gold standard, or not the next gold standard, but water will be a high commodity crop, and it is already in certain areas. What they'll use there is the VWBA, volumetric water benefit accounting. Don't know a lot about it. I apologize that I can't give you more info without Googling it, but it is one of the metrics that companies are using to measure any sort of water benefits. So, policy trends, what are we seeing right now? Oop, hit the button. Raccoon River in Iowa, also known as the Des Moines Waterworks, right? Lawsuit in 2017. What that was, basically really quick, there's a few counties that have drainage districts, and that water was draining down into Des Moines. Des Moines had to clean it because it was high in nitrates, so the municipality could drink it. They filed a claim against those districts. A federal judge ruled against it, and essentially the case was dead. But what that highlights is it is gaining federal attention. Right, so if a case in a state between a city and 3 counties with irrigation districts are getting federal attention, policy trends might start shifting, right? Something definitely to pay attention to. This, obviously, the federal court case basically said that the irrigation districts were not responsible for the nitrate. It is all about management of the water that runs off the field. They did what they were supposed to according. The after effect of that was excess nitrogen that had to be cleaned out. Anyways, it was a court case that gained a lot of attention. I was going to talk about this one, but I feel like at this point it's kind of beating a dead horse, right? Jackson talked about it. The panel up here talked about it. It is something that is very active. So there is a program here in Nebraska that we stepped into to help finish the last 2 years. And it does concern nitrate leaching within a local county and what they're doing to help alleviate those issues. And a lot of that is implementing different practices. Two of those practices, there's 4 tiers, and you have to participate if you want to get paid more. But one of them is to plant a cover crop that you can use on those corn acres. And not only are producers seeing a great benefit from reduced erosion effects, but also now they get to graze it. It's further west, heavy livestock industry, and that grazing that cover crop allows them to conserve more hay, so their feed cost dips. If you're spending $30 an acre and you can feed 100 head, that's probably good for 60 days. You know, how much money are you saving versus the hay that you had to buy or cut, right? So there's ways to look around it, but the community that they're around really noticed it as well. The air isn't dark, it's not blowing, the ditches aren't black from snow with soil settling on top. It is having a profound effect on the local community. And they have let the farmers and the feedlot who was kind of spearheading this project know that they are happy with the turnaround that they're seeing. One thing that we're not thinking about that really could drive policy is the sedimentation of our water reservoirs. So they have an active lifespan, 50 to 70 years. We do know that sedimentation is natural, but are those water resources, are their lifespans diminishing quicker because we have increased runoff? Is the local wildlife in the water being affected by excess fertilizer running down into those situations? So that not only affects water drinking for cities, but it also affects recreational use. It could affect a lot of different things. And cleaning out water reservoirs is not easy, nor is it cheap. On a large scale, I think I saw anything, let's just use 10 acres or better. To dredge that out is $20 to $60 per cubic foot of material removed. Right, so you're talking millions and millions of dollars. So instead of paying a dredging company to bring in their stuff and dredge that out, that money would be better suited to go into local farmers' pockets to help adopt new practices to prevent such issues. Because if we lose a water source, guess what? They have to go upriver and build another dam. So now we're losing more acres because we still have to have water to drink. Cities do in particular. This one hits home for me. This is still active and has caused great strife among our Attorney General and our local governor. Started in 2005 when the state of Oklahoma went after 13 different poultry companies for excess phosphorus use, and that was being run off into the Illinois water, which was affecting downstream quite a large community and ecosystem. 2000, about 10 years later, they reached a settlement. To date, it is still being fought. The settlement really hasn't come to light. One of the 13 companies has agreed to put money into a fund, which is the overall thought process here. These 13 companies with 248 different violations is what the state is citing them for. They have to put $30 million into a fund, and that fund has to go towards reducing phosphorus runoff for the Illinois watershed. The reason why it's affecting a large portion of Oklahoma producers is because the poultry companies are not renewing contracts for these poultry producers who have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a facility, to buy feed, to make sure that they can provide a product. And now that's being taken away. So we don't know if this is going to get to a federal level. Like I said, our Attorney General and the governor are still very active, but this is happening in poultry, can have a very direct effect to cows, livestock, right? So this is something to pay attention to see how it works out. What they're doing. So how do we measure some of these programs that folks are participating in, CPGs, right? So water, nutrient, MMRV, measure, monitor, record, and validate. If you have a Scope 3 or a carbon program, those are the 4 letters you're going to hear a lot, you'll see a lot. That is what they're looking for. Targets that CPGs set using the SBTI, Science-Based Target Initiatives, they're being held accountable. SBTI also helps them set a clear path in achieving those sustainability goals. So it's not just go on there and you make a claim. They will give you guidance in order to achieve those claims. So you have that ability to say, we said this in 2020, by 2040, we achieved it, right? But SBTI also covers a larger scope concerning nature, freshwater, land, biodiversity metrics, etc. Carbon, there's 2 predominant models, you will, for carbon. You have Vera, which is VM0042. That protocol is used globally. Any company who wants to create a carbon program usually refers back to this one. They take that protocol, figure out how their program can meet that protocol needs and deliverables, and that's what they run off of. Another one is through the Climate Action Reserve, and that is the SEP, which is the Soil Enrichment Protocol. There are a few companies within the United States that are actively using that protocol in a carbon offset market. That is where you sign up, you sequester carbon, that carbon is verified through the MMRV, those credits are registered and then sold to registered buyers. Some of the biggest news we just saw recently was Microsoft agreeing to buy carbon credits for the next, 10 or 12 years to the point of like 2.6 million credits. So very active, and there's still a lot of interest in that. And then the volume water metric or balancing is most companies who want to use this one for any sort of water are CPGs who have high water use. Soft drinks, Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Coke, apple juice even. They'll dilute it with water. Gatorade. One I'm sure some folks were participating in last night, beer. If you go to a football game, a baseball game, how many gallons of beer are going through in a single game? That is a tremendous amount of water, right? Even looking at high fructose corn syrup, if you're extracting that, if Pepsi can help irrigated corn growers figure out a way to produce the same amount of corn, reducing water, 7 billion gallons, that draws a lot of attention to them. They want to know how they can take that, run it on a broader scale so more folks are able to conserve more water. They'll pay for that because they get to put their name on that. That's big for them. That's huge PR. So what are some programs out there? Eric talked about how he's got a list up there. What we're doing is we work with the USDA. That's how AgSpire got started with 2 programs. The Grass is Greener and Covering America. So Grass is Greener is basically, it's livestock focused. You're taking some land, whether it's marginal crop production that you want to put back to grass. You have pasture that you want to increase the biodiversity on. That's a program that pays you a flat rate per acre, pays for that seed cost, and potentially could pay for the seeding. So you're not out any money, but you get a new pasture establishment. Covering America is growing specialty seed for a seed company, and in turn, they give you a premium on that grain production, and they pay $30 an acre to cover a cover crop seed cost that you have to match the equal acres that you had in the program. Growing 100 acres of oats, you turn that production over to that company and you plant 100 acres of oats anywhere on the operation. You can graze it, hay it, terminate it at the time you deem fit, but it has to be meant in order to get paid. Usually to get paid in any program, you do have to complete the objectives. Sometimes you have to prove those, whether it's pictures like, hey, cover crops growing, sign an attestation stating that you did what you said you were going to do. Once all that is verified, payment is issued, company depending, within the week or within 30 days, right? Private, CPGs, lots of them. Scope 3, every Scope 3 program you see is private to that particular company who is setting it. That means they have a very specific goal that they want to meet, and they set those goals to achieve that. Great examples, we just, Eggspire partnered with a CPG in Central Kansas, small scale. They want to make sure it works. It's adopted well, 5,500 acres, but it affects wheat growers. What they want to know is, will you plant a cover crop? We'll pay you X amount of dollars. Will you reduce or use nitrogen management? We'll pay you X amount of dollars. Will you reduce till or no till? And we'll pay you X amount of dollars. All of these are stackable. The great thing is, we can take that and run to the NRCS office and have them apply for the same practices. And then they get approved, they can get paid from the NRCS as well. So as a CCA, I also got my TSP, which is a technical service provider for the NRCS. These codes that we work with, I have certification in the states that we operate in, and I can, at the request of the producer, help them create the planning for those practices. So it kind of helps speed them up. I can give them really good direction, and that's one of the things that we can offer. There's 3 of us in the company that have CCAs, and all 3 of us are TSP. I'm in Oklahoma, we have 1 in Iowa, and we have 1 in South Dakota. Opportunities are present. We have a great example over here. USDA programs, AMP is the new one, the $700 million that was just announced. Yesterday morning, I had breakfast with Jimmy Emmons, who reports to the Secretary of Ag, and he said that the program is designed to get people started, to build a foundation on their operation. Once that operation is up and running after the 5 years, they take a soil sample the first year. At the end of 5, they take another, and they show them that difference. Like, this is what you've done over the 5 years using this program. Now we're going to transition you into CSP, another long-term program to help them get up and running. That is what the overall goal is of the money that was just announced. So we still don't have a lot of details because they haven't provided all the details yet, but Jimmy said that it's very close to being on its way. Early February we should have it, but he also said don't quote me on that. So who is Eggspire? What we do is we do help CPGs who approach us. We say we need to develop a program that meets these goals that we want to set. We ask them where, and then we help them design what goals are achievable. You would be surprised at some of the things companies are asking to collect. Great example. They wanted to know how many licks a cow takes at a mineral tub. How do you collect that information? So we basically push back. What are you going to do with it? Are you willing to pay for it? Because this is what it's going to cost. Will you accept that a 250-pound mineral tub lasts 30 days for 50 cows on an average rate of so many pounds per day per head? Usually that wins the argument. So there's a lot of common sense that Eggspire brings to companies who are interested in a lot of this information, but they don't have an agriculture background. That's where we come in. That's how we help. But through that process, we want to make sure, and I should have switched the slides up, but at the end I'll touch on it. We want to make sure that everything meets our 3 core principles. And I'll get that here in a second. Our approach is producer-centric, which is one of them. So they wanted to collect how many licks a cow takes. We said absolutely not. No farmer will participate, no rancher. We have to identify some other thing that you can use, or we need to eliminate that. There's a lot of really bizarre requests that come down the line that we push back on, make sure that it makes sense, but also, like, what are you going to do with that? What information is that going to tell that you guys are looking for? And if they can't give us a clear response, we will push really hard and that's not needed, or we'll use an average use rate. So how it basically starts is the producer visit. After we have identified a program, everything's ready to run and roll, we line up the producer visits. Great examples of what Jackson has here today. Producers are here. If there was a program, it would be presented. It would be understood that here are the expectations of participating. Everybody understands what is needed, and to make sure that it is a good fit for your operation, right? If we have a livestock program we're participating in, you guys don't have any cows, it's probably not a good fit, right? If you can identify an opportunity where you can do this but have your neighbor who does have livestock jump on there, then there's a really nice opportunity for both of you guys. Intervention plan, technical expertise. I've got 15, darn it, I'm sorry. I have 15 years, been an agronomist my whole life. Gentleman in South Dakota who's the other CCA and the TSP, he has more research experience. He spent a lot of time doing research for companies. He's got a drone, he flies seed, he flies chemical, has a lot of experience, he can offer that. And we have the one in Iowa is younger but has fresh knowledge that is more up to date than what we have. And so between the three of us, we can really create a comprehensive plan that achieves goals but also is able for something that producers can do. And then we support them. We help them understand what they need to do, help them implement those practices, and then after everything is said and done, verification is complete, payment. And the public funding opportunities, example over here, again, we can match NRCS programs with them. If there is no, as long as it's stated and what, depending on the program, which does vary, we will push them absolutely into the NRCS office and say, you can get X amount of dollars for this practice that you're already doing through this program. So you can get paid twice on it. It really depends on what the outcomes are for each project. We have over 300 producers in our network right now, and that is growing. Our GIG program and our Covering America program, GIG Grass is Greener, when AMP came back out and renewed it, which was under the Climate Smart Commodity Grant, they added a lot of numbers to what we already established. So that 300 producers, after 2026, will go over 500, and then it'll keep going from there. Eggspire has a network. In that network, through multiple states, we have over 900 folks that we can reach out to. We just had a program in Kansas. We'll go through that network. We'll identify wheat producers in central Kansas, and we will shoot them an email. Program just came out. This is what it entails. Are you interested? Reach out, right? To date, we've paid over $4.4 million in incentives to producers. That is through different livestock programs, row crop programs, USDA funded, and private. And then some of those practices are that we support, not limited to, but what you see up there, forage and range, which is the Grass is Greener, cover crop, Covering America, and Grass is Greener, and then private programs, huge on cover cropping. Herd productivity, we have one called Ranching for the Future. One of our technical advisors is a vet. So she leads that one because her livestock experience with herd health makes her a perfect fit. So Eggspire, I said earlier I'd come back to this. Here it is. Our core principles, 3 of them, producer-centric. We do not develop nor do we accept working with a program that is not focused on the producer. It has to make sense. Data collection has to make sense. It has to be feasible, and then it all has to tie in to the project that they want, right? So licking, how many licks at a cow tub, if they want to correlate that to how many pounds of forage you're eating, it really doesn't make sense. That's a supplemental nutrient. We can find something else that you guys are looking for that fits what you're wanting to claim. Progress, right? We want to drive sustainability. That is our goal, is we help companies develop those plans, and then we help implement those for producers. Companies get sustainability goals, producers get help and incentive payments to also drive sustainability actions on their operation. People, we work with a broad number of people, not only internally, we have a great access of knowledge, folks who worked on the Hill, folks who've worked within the NRCS, and folks who have strong agricultural backgrounds. So with that, I'd like to end. And if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to stand up here and entertain them. I know that after lunch is a tricky time. I had 2 goals. 1, I achieved by not spilling anything on my shirt. And 2, hit and miss. Wanted to keep everybody's attention. Sometimes some sustainability companies, CPG stuff can get a little nodding off, but you know, I did what I tried to do to keep you guys up and engaged. Happy to answer any questions about what we're seeing, any specific questions about projects, any of that.
Are you working with any projects in Nebraska currently?
Yes. Are we working with any projects in Nebraska at this moment? We have the Covering America project, which is more focused because there are deliverable destinations for this grain, right? And that is growing specialty grain for mealborne seed. So there's a location in Imperial and then Brookings, South Dakota, or near Brookings. So if you live within an area where freight won't eat up that premium, that is an opportunity there. Grass is Greener gig program, which focuses on increasing biodiversity for pastures. That is Kansas, Nebraska, Montana, Wyoming, Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa. Main focus in those states right there. We have a private program over in the central part of the state. We walked into that one. There was a technical advising team that was there. They moved on. We stepped in. There was 2 years left. We just completed the first year, and we have 1 year left to complete there. That one was really concerning the nitrates and erosion concerns. We've had really good success with that one. There's 2 separate CPGs involved with that one, a big retailer and a livestock brand. And they're the ones who are fronting the money, paying the incentives for the producers to kind of move through this. So we did not get to set that. There's 4 tiers, but the objective of that particular project was to advance producers through the tiers. The sponsors of the project wanted to show, if we start here, our payments and sponsorship will get producers up to this tier. Well, for 3 years they were stuck at the second one because the understanding of how a cover crop with a legume in there was not conveyed well to the producers. So we went in, we asked if we could do grazing on that through the winter instead of haying it in the summer. It goes for a feed. It's labeled as a feed for livestock. Both CPGs said yes, and we adopted out of the 22, 19 of them advanced this past year. So that's one of the things that we can do is we can help identify roadblocks, get past those and just interpreting what was set before a little differently. So far, everybody's been really, really happy with that one.
Are there programs that you cannot stack with other carbon or public or private funding?
Really depends on each project, yes. So if some of it, like Grass is Greener, Covering America, because they're USDA funded, you cannot walk into the NRCS office like, Covering America, I have to plant a cover crop on this 100 acres. I want to sign that 100 acres up in a cover crop, a 340. You can't do that. If a company is making outcome claims from that Scope 3 project, you cannot double dip on that. But depending on how they have it set up, you can walk into the NRCS office and get funding for that project or for that practice that you want to implement. You could have one that's there, but then walk over to Ducks Unlimited and like, hey, I want to do this wetland project. This company's going to pay for this, but Ducks Unlimited might say, hey, we'll pay for this. And you got best of both worlds there. So each Scope 3 project is really variable on what you can and cannot do as far as other funding opportunities. It really just kind of depends.
Does the cover crop have to be a new practice?
Great question. Does a cover crop have to be a new practice? Does reduction in tillage or no-till have to be a new practice? Does nitrogen management, reduction have to be a new practice? Top 3 practices most CPGs look at for row crop production. Those 3 right there. There are programs where they only want you to adopt those. You haven't done them in one full crop rotation, right? So that needs to be established. Well, what is that? If I'm corn on corn, well, that's just 1 year. It can be defined as 2 years because you need consistent data, or 3 years because that's what they want to set. A 2-crop rotation, corn beans, typically 4 years. Can be 2, it really depends on the project. So, I have to say that because this is how I answer that question. Depending on the project, yes, it can be or has to be a new practice implemented on the acre you want to enroll, either the first time ever or within a full crop rotation. Other programs will say, nope, we just want to say we'll pay for this, but we get to claim that our dollars did that. Projects are different. You just have to identify what it is that they're wanting. It can be something you're already doing, or it has to be something new to that acre within at least one full crop rotation.
And I assume the seeding rate and stuff like that is also depending upon the program.
So does the seeding rate depend upon the program? Species selection, we'll use cover crops as an example. There are programs, if you're going to get into an NRCS program, you have to meet their guidelines. The GIG, we have to follow conservation practice standards for each state for a cover crop, which is a 340, pasture and hay planting, which is a 512, or native range, which is 550. Seed mixes have to meet those state requirements because it's partial NRCS funding. If it's a private program, that will be determined when the program is being developed. If they just say, we want it covered if it was never covered before, that leaves it open to interpretation. We would always recommend a multi-species because there's a lot of benefits from that. But if there is no clear number, then a single species can work. Again, project dependent, fully depending on who's sponsoring it and what they're paying for and what their outcomes would be. Same thing with nitrogen, right? We want to pay for this reduction. Well, if you're already doing that, are they okay continuing that payment? Or they say, well, it's got to be on new acres. You pick up something new. Your 1,000 acres you've been farming for 10 years has been that way, but the 2 quarters you just picked up from your grandpa have been done differently. Those 2 quarters would qualify. It's never, let me retract that. It is usually not operation-wide. It can be with livestock on certain things, especially herd health, but it doesn't have to focus on that. Any other questions? I really hope I didn't scare you guys away. There is money, folks, and if you're looking for an opportunity to try something new, small. Always try small. You don't have to do the highway frontage quarter. Do the back 40 that nobody knows about, that you try weird things on anyway, right? Network, find the right people, talk to somebody who's been in a program. What experiences can they offer? What can you take from that and make your own? Sharing experiences is one of the things I love to do the most. If there's something you would like to know, I would love to share, if I have experience, what that is. It might be Texas, it might be North Dakota, it might be, I was in Ohio for a while, not living there, but I was working with some farmers in Ohio who had different practices. If you guys want to talk about something, I'd be more than happy to. Yes.
Let's say let's say there's a group of farmers who are all doing similar regen practices, and they want to pool together and look for an opportunity to be paid like carbon credits or something like that, have a carbon co-op. Is that something that you could, are you getting asks from other entities for things like that too?
So a group getting together and creating their own pool. So if you want to create validated credits, offset market style credits, you have to get it validated. Whatever method you want to use to create those credits has to be validated. If it's validated, you can absolutely create and market and sell your credits to any CPG that's interested in buying them, right? We are not wanting to get into that carbon market. It's not something AgSpire leadership feels is a direction we want to take as a company. We want to focus on companies setting internal goals and helping them achieve that. And if that does take, like, hey, we want to, great example is the project in Kansas. It's small, 5,500 acres. They just said, we want to go to this area in Kansas where we source a lot of wheat. We don't care where the acres, we don't want to know who the producers are. We just want to know, can they implement these practices? We'll pay them this amount, and we want this outcome. So what that is entirely dependent on if the producers want to participate. So AgSpire doesn't want to get into that market, so we're not entertaining ideas from companies who are wanting to create something like that. But we are entertaining ideas if a company approaches us and say, we want to affect this area for this project, and then we will get a group of producers together and pitch that program and see if it is to their liking. And we've gone back and said, there was not good interest. Here's the feedback. What can we do to address it? We'll change the program, and then we'll relaunch it to better fit. We've done that. Try to make it producer-centric. So I hope that answered your question. Okay.
Sorry, I know that you don't want to get in the market of it, but I'm wondering if you know of any companies that do that verification of carbon credits for producers.
Yep. Let's see here. For offset market carbon credits, Indigo Ag is one. They've partnered with a number of different companies, so they'll usually pass that off to their partners. There are really in early 2020 and 19, there was a lot coming out. It's really dwindled. Nori, I think was the very first one. They shut their doors a couple years ago. They had a different approach to it. Other companies have shut their doors but partnered with somebody who's been more effective in the marketplace. For row crop, Indigo Ag is one. Truterra's got a program. Corteva has got a program. If you look at rangeland acres, that is actually gaining more attention right now in the media. You have not limited to Grassroots Carbon, Agoro, Qatari, Perennial. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few in there. But those are companies that are offering range programs. I do want to really strongly express, before you ever get in bed with a carbon program, row crop or pasture, read the terms of agreement, okay? You could be locked in for X amount of years. And if you withdraw, you pay money back. There are programs that you can withdraw. You keep what you got paid, but you forfeit any future payments, okay? Read the fine print. Make sure you understand what you're getting into with any program. Scope 3s are short-term, company-specific, and usually offer variability on, I want to participate this year, crop rotation doesn't allow it next year, that's fine. They're not locking you into anything except a one-year participation with deliverables to be met. Everybody okay? All right. I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Jake.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jake, for enlightening us to some of the programs that are out there. For those of you that are unaware, the state of Nebraska has received a grant from the EPA. It's titled the One Red Initiative. I would encourage you to go read up on some of what's going on there, some of the interest that there is in MMRV, carbon intensity, and some of these topics. I know that there hasn't been a whole lot of reality in the market to this point, as Jake has kind of shared with us, but at the same time, there really is some real momentum here, as he also shared with us, and there's going to be something real happening, and Nebraska is looking to take a position of leadership on this and really show how it can be done here in the U.S. Yes, One Red Initiative is what it is. So I'd encourage you to go take a look at that.